What do you build? What do you build?
Welcome to the Kent Lapp Podcast.
Do not try this at home.
Svetlana, thanks for being on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I was a little bit intimidated and nervous because you have all these experiences like spiritually and as a healer and a practitioner and all of this. And I just feel like someone who does that can like see more of me than like the average person can. So I was a little bit like nervous about this.
Oh my goodness, it is so funny because I've heard that before.
Oh, really?
From someone. Yes, it's like I'm really nervous speaking to you.
Yeah.
The reality is, I personally do not believe into getting into anyone or plugging into anyone, getting information from anyone unless they really want to and they open
Okay.
and they're coming in and asking for it.
Yep.
So, and most healers and psychics and people with those powers, they cannot read your mind.
They cannot.
They cannot, no.
So do you think it's kind of like a therapist or a counselor where I feel like some people would be maybe a little bit nervous or intimidated around them because they feel like they can read them so well? Do you experience the same thing with people around you if they feel like they can read you? You can read them so well?
I think it is more of unknown that people are nervous about when they come to see me. They don't know what to expect.
Okay.
They don't know what it is, how it's going to be. And I feel having the conversation in the beginning, really explaining them the process and what
Yeah.
it is really eases them into the opening their heart and soul so that I can go in and work.
Yeah. Well, why don't you tell people what your name is and kind of what you do? Let's start there.
Yeah, so my name is Svetlana. I am a spiritual healer. I'm a founder of the Light Freedom. My mission is to free people in their light so they can shine bright and then impact many people.
Yeah.
So I've been on a path of spirituality for 10 years now, and it kind of evolved. And in this point, the healing work is my destiny. It is my heart. It is my soul. It is my love. It is everything. But I also do yoga, teach meditation, teach courses and classes and other things as well.
Is the spiritual healing your calling and what you love so much, what you're passionate about, what you're so good at, because you have had such deep pain in that area and then you experienced healing and now you feel like you can offer that to others? Or is this always something that you were interested in even as a kid?
Both.
Oh, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. Fascinating. Let's actually go back. I want to hear your story. What was it like growing up in Kazakhstan? How do you pronounce that
Yes.
country?
Kazakhstan.
Kazakhstan. Okay. This is where you grew up.
Yes.
But you were in a Russian family. Does that just mean, is that accurate? Were you in a Russian family?
Yes. My family, Russian, Ukrainian. So when I was born, Kazakhstan was a part of Soviet Union. And therefore, there were a lot of Russians there. There are still quite a little bit of Russians in Kazakhstan, but it was more of a melting pot of different cultures and different people. And again, my name is Russian. That's the language that I speak. And
Your first language is Russian? Okay. And not to know your age, but for context, when roughly were you born? When were you born? Like
85.
Oh, okay. Okay. So in the mid-'80s, Kazakhstan was part of the USSR?
Correct.
Oh, okay. Interesting. So when did it kind of become its own thing then?
91, when everything started falling apart and Kazakhstan became, 91 to 93 was a lot of restructuring at that time. And then
Okay.
it became its own land, its own country, its own currency. Definitely was a lot of pain at that time. Devaluation. I still remember my mother looking at me and saying that she might never be able to afford to buy me a candy bar again because it came from, kind of translated into American, from $4 to $400.
A candy bar?
Yes. So money became nothing in an instance.
When was this?
When Soviet Union fell apart,
And why would that happen?
because every country started separating and creating their own currency, their own money, and it's just one of the ways.
Wow. How long does that go on? When a candy bar used to be $4 and now it's $400, is this go on for months or weeks? Or, because this is not sustainable, right? You can't, a car would be,
No,
like,
it
no
kind of
one could buy anything.
So it went from rubles, right, from 4 rubles to 400 rubles, and then after that, rubles were changed into tenge, which is the Kazakh money, and then it became its own currency. So then it kind of got stabilized a little bit more.
But was there a season where basically no one was buying anything because of what had happened? And you were just living off the food that happened to be in your house?
Exactly. And there was no food in the stores. When the food comes into the stores, me and my cousins, we would go 7:30, 7 a.m. in the morning because the bread comes in at 8. And they would only allow third quarter of a loaf for a person. And they would actually cut it. So it would be 3 of us, so we can get 2.5 loaves of bread and bring it home. And then there was really empty shelves everywhere, and we would grow things, right? So we had a garden, and there was a lot of potatoes and vegetables, and they would be eating it all summer and then pickling it for the winter.
Okay, yeah. There's worse things to eat than that.
Yes, so that kind of, I still don't love pickled food. I feel like...
You don't?
No.
Oh, you don't? Oh, I do. Anything pickled is good for me. But if you probably had too much of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, for me, it's like a food of poverty, just because
really? Okay.
how we grew up.
Sure.
It's always was the same thing in a different variation.
Okay, yeah. Now, when you're going to the bread store or the store at 7:30 a.m. to get 3/4 of a loaf per person, are they giving it to you as sort of a ration, or are you buying it?
Buying it.
You're buying it. And is this in the season where everything was super expensive, or was this now somewhat affordable to buy this bread? Because if a candy bar was $400 or 400 currency, whatever it was, there's no way you could afford to buy a loaf of bread, right?
Yeah, I don't really remember all of it and how it was all restructuring at that time. I just remember, that family would come together. Any savings that you had, you didn't have it anymore. Anything that you ever kind of tried to save up and create and make, everything was gone. And at that point, I don't feel like many people truly, deeply care. They just needed to survive.
I see. Sure. That makes sense. Okay. So you were born in Kazakhstan. It wasn't Kazakhstan, of course, when you were born, but then it became that. And that's over just south of Russia. And it's like Russia is very close to Russia. What borders Russia and China? Is that right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. And it's Jerremy said this when he was on the podcast, that it's the 9th largest country in the world.
It is very big.
Which is, it blew our minds. Like, I had no idea. I mean, I would think that the 9th largest country in the world would have been one that would have been on my radar more. But I know next to nothing about Kazakhstan. What is the geography like there? Like, is there any states in America that you would kind of compare it to? Like, is it forested or is it barren?
It's all of it just because the land is so big. So we have mountains and lakes, and it's just stunning green nature.
So it is. It's pretty.
In one part.
Okay.
And another part is like Las Vegas. It's all desert.
Really?
So, but it is mostly deserty.
I see. Okay. But where you guys lived, it was good for growing gardens and stuff like that?
We could grow things, yes, but it was still more of a desert landscape.
Oh,
We
I
didn't
see.
have many
Okay,
mountains.
gotcha. I'm almost picturing like parts of Colorado, like south of Denver. I don't know if you've ever been in that area. It feels a little bit deserty there. And you can grow things, but it's a little more difficult than here. Do you have siblings?
I don't.
Really?
Yeah.
You were the only child?
The only child.
Wow. So what was it like growing up? Fast forward just a little bit. You left Kazakhstan when you were 20?
Correct.
Okay. So you grew up there. You had all those years there. What was it like living there? You gave us a little bit of insight into when the currency and all of this and going to the store. But like, what was it like to be a child there? Like with the schools, and were there things to do, or like what was life like there?
Yes, school. We would go to school every day, like kids here do. Played a lot outside.
Okay.
I feel like things would come a lot later, like 50, we're 50 years behind. It's catching up right now, like
Okay.
50 years behind America. But I did play a video game, I think, when I was like 14 years old. And I
Okay.
got my first cell phone when I was already in a college.
Okay.
So it's a little bit, it doesn't happen as fast as
Yeah.
it does here.
Yep.
But no, overall, I was covered in love.
Mm-hmm.
Had amazing grandmother and grandfather and aunts and uncles. So the family values and being close. We grew a lot of things. I did started working very early. Like 6, 7, I was already helping my grandma. She would sell, again, because we had a garden and we'll have seeds, so we can sell seeds in the spring. And so everyone knew me, so they'll buy things from me. And,
Okay.
yeah.
Even when you were 6 and 7 years old, you were selling things?
Yes, I was.
Really? Were other kids doing this too, or were you more like entrepreneurial like that?
I think I wanted things a little bit more.
Okay. Huh.
Yes. And also, because it was only mom and I, didn't have a lot of support. And that if I wanted to buy anything, kind of had to have money to do so.
I see. And you knew that at like 6 and 7 years old?
Yep.
Wow. Was your parents separated or?
You know, my father was never in the picture.
Okay.
So they never were married.
Oh, really?
Period.
Okay. Okay. Wow. Your mom, did you always know that you would leave that country or?
I didn't.
Okay.
But I would watch every Sunday at 10:30 a.m. There was a travel show for 30 minutes. And every Sunday I would watch it. And I would see all these beautiful different countries. And I would dream that maybe one day that can be me.
Oh, yeah?
Yes. And I remember breaking down and crying when I recognized that it never can be me. Because it will take my mom working full time for 3 years to save up enough money to be able to buy a plane ticket.
Ooh.
And there was absolutely no way, no reality that was supporting any of those wishes or dreams. But I still had a hope in my heart.
Uh-huh. I mean, here you are. I mean, this is sort of like surreal to me a little bit. Like here is someone who was born in Kazakhstan, single mom. I mean, the idea that you would work for 3 years to buy a plane ticket and that's where all your money would go from those 3 years there's no way. And that here you are, like in America, flourishing, doing extremely well. And it's just, man. So, I mean, we need to hear more of that story, but how you kind of got from there to here. But I'm still kind of curious a little bit. I'd love to hear a little bit more what life was like there, because I watched a documentary recently on like life in Russia, and I'm picturing life in Kazakhstan might have been somewhat similar to like life in Russia, but just is it kind of the I'm picturing the environment being a little bit more like, I don't know, less open, less free, less expressive, a little bit more contained, a little bit more repressed. Is that accurate or no?
It is accurate. And again, it has changed a lot because we have internet right now and the world is opening up and people are, a little bit more evolved, the younger generation, and some of them are able to travel and go and see other places and then come back and say, wow, this is wrong.
Oh, okay.
Yes. However, there is not much that you can do with that, even though it is wrong. So I believe last year it happened that a president changed, but it was the same president since Soviet Union fell apart. And it is a democracy, right? And so anyone else who will run against him would be just there for a show or would be put in jail. And so there was really no one else ever. And so he would just extend different terms when it was 4 years and it became 7 years. And it was just like one person show. And no one can really say anything. There is no, people don't know really the law because everyone is below the law. If you are in a power, you're in a power and you can do anything. If you're not, then you're out of luck.
Mm-hmm. And it's still that way today, somewhat.
Somewhat.
More than here.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
This is like, I call America a candy shop. Like you come in here like, oh my God, I can be anything. There are no barriers, but only the ones that are in your mind. Nothing else. You want to open up the business? Open up the business. Go online. Here's a website. Here's LLC. Ready to go. You don't need to pay mafia, don't need to pay under the table, don't need to do all of that other hundreds things and loops that you never can do in so many other places. Like, this is so free. So free.
Okay, I don't disagree with you, but there's some people that don't think it's so free here. There's some people that think depends where you're born or depends what your situation is. You can't get ahead in America. Things are against you. And you're saying there's still, in America, there's probably still, some people have it better off than others here, right? If you are born in a super wealthy family or you're born in an extremely poor family, that's a difference, right? But at the end of the day, it's a free country and there's still opportunity here for everyone. That's what I'm hearing you say.
It is. So many opportunities for anyone. If there is a desire in their heart and there is a wish, there are people, there is opportunities, there are ways, there are doors, there are windows. There are no doors or windows in so many places.
I wonder if that's a message that we need to hear a little bit more of here. Because sometimes we can be products of our own environment. And if you were born in a free country like America and your parents were here and maybe your grandparents were here, like myself. I mean, unless you travel outside of this country, you just think the whole world's like this. That's your product of your culture. Well, the whole world's not like this.
It is not.
And for all of the things that America has so much room for improvement in, which it totally does. This is no Narnia. I mean, there's still, or heaven on earth. I mean, there's still some things that need to be improved here. But when you compare it to Kazakhstan or some other places around the globe, it's night and day difference.
It is. And I tell people, the one that are struggling with a lot of depression, especially, go to a third world country and see what life truly is, because this is not even real. Right? You have an opportunity to be depressed and just be sad and be caught up in your emotions, where most of the world is just trying to survive and fight for life.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's what is meant by first world problems, right?
Yes.
Like, we have these first world problems here because, sometimes we think everything's stacked against us, or you can't get ahead, or there's no opportunity, or there's no way you're going to have a brighter future, or you're dealing with these. You have the luxury of having some of these like depressions or some of these things that you're talking about, some of these challenges. Those are very first world. Some of those can be very first world problems. And when you go to see actually how it is for other people, that's the benefit of traveling too. There's so much benefit, particularly if you're born in America. The benefit of traveling around the world, or getting in other countries and other cultures and seeing how different people do things. I mean, for me, just watching that documentary on what it was like to live in Russia, this was a few months back, but it was good for me, because while I still feel like there's room for improvement here in America, we have a lot going for us that at least they didn't portray in that documentary on Russia. Mm-hmm. Those people didn't have near the opportunity that we have here.
And again, the world is changing. There are some people that have a lot of opportunities in Russia and in Kazakhstan right now, and they've created different things for themselves, and they're able to travel, they're able to live all together. Right, mm-hmm. and create a different environment for themselves and change their destiny in such a way, in such a shape. But
to do that, I mean, if you're born in those countries, you're trying to move or get out, you have to have the finances in order. You have to have the plane tickets, certainly, or the travel, whatever that is, train, ship. But you've got to have the visas. You've got to have. I mean, you do have a lot stacked against you, right?
You do.
It's a lot easier to go from here to there than it is to go from there to here.
Correct. But even going from here to there, if you want to try to get a Russian visa, it's a process.
Oh, really?
It is.
Yeah, okay.
It's kind of hard.
Just to visit, or
just to visit. It
takes
going through the embassy and getting. You will get it. It's just it just takes forever.
I see.
Yeah.
So did people own their homes over there, or do you rent mostly, or a little bit of both?
When I was growing up, it was mostly owned. And so therefore, parents, the children will live with their parents and so on. Now there is a little bit more of leasing options, renting options, and there are other things that are coming along. Mm-hmm. Banking system change. You can actually get a loan now. You can buy. I mean, the loan is like 18, 20%. It's crazy, right? It's not like, oh yeah, I'll buy a home here, I'm paying 2%. It's very different numbers, but at least there is an opportunity for a younger couple to be able to purchase.
But if a younger couple in Kazakhstan is going to purchase a home, they might be paying 18 to 20% interest today?
Yes.
Today. Wow. What might that home, well, that's different currency, so it's not going to do much good. Do you know what a home might cost over there in American dollars?
It depends. It depends
Okay.
where it is. And I really don't at this point because I know, I look at America and I see what's happening and I know what will happen in Kazakhstan just in a little bit. And so like when we had a bubble and real estate bubble and it's burst and the market crashed like 09, 10. So like 5 years later, it happened in Kazakhstan, because real estate was really high and then it got super low. I think it is changing right now, but I'm not up to date.
Yeah. And then is college a common thing?
Yes.
Okay. So that was a common thing. And then is it state schools or do you pay for your education?
So the schools are mostly, country provides you the education, but when you go into the college, most of them are private or you need to pay for it, which is really, really expensive as well.
Okay. So similar to the U.S.
Again, there are ways if you're super smart to get in and to get a grant and not to pay. There are some trade schools that are free or very little price, but if you want to go to like college, university, it's a lot of money.
Yeah, speaking of the repression, I think this was on your website. I think you were talking about Kazakhstan here, but there was no God, no sex, no expression, and many other no's dominated society at that time. And you are talking about the society you grew up in, right?
I'm talking about Soviet Union.
Soviet Union. Okay. Yeah. But you would have been part of that.
I was. I definitely was born in it, and then it started changing.
Yeah. Okay. What do you think are the outcomes of that? Because that does not sound like human flourishing. That does not sound like an environment where we would do well in, like people would do well in. What's the outcome of a society like that?
I was really 6, 7 years old when it started changing, so I was very young. However, it depends who you ask. You ask some of our parents, and they loved Soviet Union, and they liked how it was, and that everything was kind of set in stone and predicted for them, and was wearing the same clothes and doing the same thing, and others absolutely hated it. So it depends on a person and their personal experience with that. But I know that there was definitely, it was very forbidden world. You couldn't come outside, you couldn't travel, you couldn't experience. So the government didn't want people to see anything beyond what was given to them or fed to them.
And they're doing this because they don't want people to get a taste of having some freedom and doing things on their own. They want people to be reliant on them, and they want to have all the power. Is that why they would do that, you think?
Yes, it's a beautiful way to control, absolutely, and have all the power.
Yeah, it sounds great if you're in power. It sounds awful if you're not.
Exactly, and that's how, when I talk to people, it depends really who you have a conversation with. Some people love that time, and they had parents who were in power, right? And so they had amazing, beautiful homes, and they had a lot of prosperity and a lot of great things. But again, it was a lot of under the table and stealing and all the other kind of different deals that were going on. But if you were just a worker, right, with a good principles, a great values, and a good human being, most likely you didn't have much, and you were quite struggling.
So how did you get over here then?
So I feel like my journey really started when I was little, and I heard somewhere on TV and saying, "Follow your heart." I'm like, I get chills even now, and it really spoke to me. I'm like, okay, what is it? What does it mean, and how do I do it? And then I found somewhere the way to follow your heart, right? To really get quiet and to listen, to ask the question and place it into your heart and see what it tells you, yes or no. And that is, I give truly my heart space all the credit for the abundance and goodness and this incredible life that I have now. Because I did follow that voice, even though nothing else made sense. Right? It was absolutely crazy. I remember I was riding in a bus, and I asked God, what should I do to have an opportunity in life? And the voice came so loud and said, learn English. I'm like, okay, not what I expected, but okay. And so then I'm analyzing, if I know English, I can be a teacher, I can tutor, I can have all these other streams of income. Not a bad idea, but English classes are super expensive. We have no money. Let me figure it out. So I go to my grandma. And grandma always had a little money somewhere. So I had to really learn how to talk to her. So I share with her my vision and how I can, improve and all the things that can happen because I'll learn English. And she would always tell me, you need to be a cook. If you're a cook, you're always fed, you're always in the kitchen, you're always warm, like your life is set. And again, she's coming from the wartime.
Sure.
Right? So for her, this is like, that's a dream come true. I'm like, well, and I'll give her again my vision of everything that I can do with English. So she would give me the money, and I had to do it every month. And we would have the same story every month because my mom couldn't. She couldn't afford to pay for those English classes. And it's so crazy because if I translate it right now in dollars, it is $7.
A month?
Yes.
For English classes?
Yes.
Whoa, so little.
And it was so much.
Sure.
It was so much.
Are you a teenager at this point?
Yes.
Okay.
So I started, taking English classes, and I also was very, very spiritually just involved when I was little. I was just starving for God. I was just starving to know it. And I would always communicate with angels, communicate with God. I was just like, I remember my mom looking at me and recognized that I was a little different as a child because I'm like, take me to church. How do I believe in God? And again, in Soviet Union, there was none of it. She's like, let me figure it out. I'm like, no idea what to do with you, right? Because she's not baptized. She's not, haven't really been in church. She doesn't know any of that stuff. So she was so amazing, and it was so cute because she'll take me in Catholic church and Orthodox church and like whatever she could. And I'll be like amazed anywhere. Just like get me in environment.
So you didn't really care which church. It was just something about the spiritual experience of being in a church, being in the service that like you'd always sort of resonated with?
I just needed God. And I thought that in those particular places, you can experience it more deeper. Mm-hmm. Even though on a regular basis throughout every day, I still will have that communication. I will still hear, and I will feel pulled in a different directions. And again, my neighborhood was a very dangerous neighborhood. I will come home and guys will be shooting heroin in front of me as I am going upstairs into my apartment. And so I learned how to pray and I learned how to talk to angels and ask for protection and all of those things. So again, nothing bad ever happened to me. And neither to my best friend. And we look at each other sometimes when I travel back home and we laugh, we're like, how did we make it? Like, it's crazy because so many of our friends are dead or in jail or like lost. And we just like, whatever it was, we did really good. Like things happens.
Yeah, no doubt. And she's still there? Your friend is still there?
She's
he
still
or she?
there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
That's
she
cool.
moved into the old capital where you have the mountains and where you have this beautiful green nature. And she actually does pretty well for herself. She has a great position and she travels around the world. And she had an opportunity to stay here, but she didn't want to. Mm-hmm. She went
And
back.
like objectively and respectfully, you're a very beautiful person. Is this common with like people in Kazakhstan? Like, are they all beautiful people or?
Everyone is there. Everyone is there. So Kazakh people look more like Mongolian. right? So it is this more Asian look. So it's a very, very unique, very beautiful look, right? So I look a little different. I look more like a Russian woman. And so, but you can find all kind of different, whatever you want, you can find it there.
Okay, interesting. So you have, and where did you even know you were praying to a god? Because I don't picture Kazakhstan as being like a very religious country, like open to spirituality. Correct me if I'm wrong. It sounds like there were churches in the area. Was going to a church a common thing? Was this a very uncommon thing? How did you even know to pray to God or a god to begin with?
So that where the conversation maybe for a little more depth will come in. At this point where I am, I know there was a lot of past life knowledge that was coming through me. I was a healer many lives, and that's all I know. And it's very in me, in all of my energy. So since I was little, I just needed that light. I was a being of light. I needed to feed on it more and more and more. And even though it wasn't as popular, it wasn't as available, I remember again, I was still little. I think I was like 5 years old. And I was like, Mom, I wanted to ask you a question. She's like, okay. And I'm like, but I was so embarrassed. I didn't know how to ask. And I wrote down on a paper, God. And she looked at it and she's like, okay. She's like, what would you like to know? I'm like, I want to know, how do I believe in God? And she asked, well, do you believe that he exists? And I remember at that time, like my mind broke and my heart broke, because it's the first time I ever recognized that there were people who thought that God doesn't exist. So it was a complete knowing always within me and that connection. And I was like, well, of course. She's like, okay, well, it's not like that for everyone. Because what I was asking her, what do I need to do? How can I serve? How can I show up? How can I embrace, right? What can I do? How can I believe? So I thought with believe, it means that you do something. And it's like, okay. And then when she started taking me to churches and different places, just for me to figure myself out.
Yeah. So with you, it was almost like you just always sort of knew there was a God. You felt that. And so the idea that some people might not believe that there is a God was a new thought for you at 5 or 6 years old.
Exactly.
I see. Okay. And then so coming back to the events leading up to you winding up in America, can you kind of walk us through all that?
Yes. So I, because I knew some English, I got into the college where I was speaking a lot of English, learning economics, English, all kind of different things. And that in that college, they offered a program called Work and Travel. You go to America for a summer, you work, you experience the country, you make money, and then you come back and continue your schooling. I thought it would be a great opportunity for me to come and visit. I go back, now I have experience, I've been in America, I spoke the language, I will have so many more opportunities. And it was $1,800 for the program. It meant that me and Mom worked for 8 months. She worked every day. I was in school and I had 3 jobs. I was full-time in school 5 days. And we were able to save up $600. So we're $1,200 short. But my burning desire, my knowing is just in every cell of me. So I thought, okay, who do I know that might have that money? Where can I borrow it? So I went to some people, they told me no, and then my actually best friend's father that I just randomly asked. I didn't think he has anything, and he did. He borrowed me that money. And I still eternally grateful to him, and I know my life would have been different, very different, if he wasn't that generous to believe in me at that time. So I came to America again for the summer. I was in New Hampshire. It was the best time of my life.
Oh, yeah?
Yes.
You loved it?
I loved it. It was so amazing. It was so many international students. We all partying and working. I made $5,000 that summer, right? I paid back what I owned. I got everyone's presents, and I had enough money to go again next year.
Oh, my goodness.
For the program, right? And everything was pink, and I'm in America. It's amazing, and this giant ice creams that you can make whatever you want with that, right? I'm like, I'm just seeing, and women. I think what really, really took me at that time is all the women, because they would have like this beautiful long pink nails and short haircuts, and they were, in their 60s, but they were still thinking about all this life in front of them, and what they were doing. And back home at 55, at that time, it changed now, you were retiring, and people were planning how they would die and saving money for the funeral. Wow. And I was like, this is amazing.
Wow. Is that because their life expectancy over there is so much shorter?
It was, and it is a lot harder life. Even when I go back home and I see my classmates and how they are and how they look, it's a lot different.
They're aging quicker.
Yes, correct.
Is that from? And sorry to sidetrack, but I'm just curious. Is that from nutrition? Is this from repression? Is there stuff in the atmosphere, the environment? Why would life be so much shorter there than here?
I think probably a combination of it all.
Healthcare? Is healthcare good there or not so good?
It is free.
Okay.
For most of the part. Now they're trying to change it, catch up with America a little bit.
Okay. Charge people a whole bunch for
exactly
not so good healthcare.
But also in Kazakhstan that's where they are setting rockets into the space. So there is a lot of radiation and there is a lot of pollution. It depends on what part of the country you are. So the radiation is very, very high there.
That will do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in some areas, actually, people's teeth just falling off, and all
the what fall off?
Teeth.
The teeth fall off?
Mm-hmm.
From the radiation from the rockets?
On all kind of other radiation and things like that.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
So it is really a combination of it all. It's not just environment also, right? Nutrition. It's not like you go here into the store. It's changing right now. Right now we do have some supermarkets and things like that. Mm-hmm. But early on it wasn't like, oh yeah, and you can have vegetables in a winter time. Like no, it's only in the summer.
I see.
So
sure.
It was a very different culture, different diet.
So seeing the women in America, New Hampshire, where you were here, was like you weren't used to seeing this level of what is it? Hope, optimism, self-care, flourishing, vitality. What was it?
Life.
Life.
Like,
okay.
People were still living. They wanted to live. At 60, you're looking at, your golden age and how you're traveling everywhere. I'm like, oh my goodness! Like, back home, all of these women in my neighborhood, they're planning to die now. And they look sad and they are unhealthy. And here's all this, all the women, but they are shining and they are optimistic and hopeful and they're planning their life and they're going all these amazing places. Mm-hmm. I was like, I want this. Mm-hmm. And then I also saw the way men treat women and a space of respect and equality. There is no expectation that, okay, I got home, laying on the couch, you go cook and clean, and even though you worked as well, I don't care. And again, it's still very, very much so. It is changing. But at that time, that's what I knew. And I'm like, oh my God, I can just be treated amazingly and loved and be respected and appreciated. I'm like, I'm done.
You can't go back. Yeah.
Exactly. So I did go back and I told my mom, I'm going again because now I have money to pay for the next year and I'm not coming back. I'm not coming back. I have no idea how it's going to be. I have no idea how long it's going to take me. And I remember I was given an opportunity to open up a business to import things from China at that time because again, I was this, ambitious, driven, speaking English, just came from America, all the different things in a university. I think I was the second girl in my university to buy a car. Again, thank you to grandma and believing in me and all the stories. I would tell her she would support me. And so I was the first person in our family to actually have a car and drive it. And so it was so much help for everyone. But anyway, yes, I came and I stayed.
So the first summer you got here, you borrowed $1,200 and took 8 months between you and your mom to raise $600.
Correct.
In the 3 months that you were here, you made $5,000.
Correct.
What were you doing? Do you remember?
I was
various jobs, or
I was working in New Hampshire in a hotel. So my position was a room service. But as a room service, I wasn't making much money. So I'd talk to my boss all the time. And then I became a server.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
In the restaurant?
In a restaurant.
Oh, wow.
So then I was making tips, and I was
Sure,
actually
that was
able
better
to
money.
make a lot of money.
And you just did that for the summer.
Just for the summer.
And then took that money back and then repaid the $1,200, bought everyone gifts, bought the car. So you had the car.
No, I had actually, I think I had a car before. No,
Okay.
maybe, I don't even remember. No, I think, yes, that's when I bought a car.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes.
Okay.
It was $1,000. Amazing. Amazing car.
It's so fun to get your first car. I mean, even in America, I can't imagine being like Kazakhstan where it's not normal. Like you said, your mom and grandma didn't even have a car.
Grandpa was freaking out the most because he was so afraid that I would be driving.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then here you are with a car. That must have been really cool. Because it's cool to get your first car even here in America when most of your family already has a car. It's still cool here. So the next summer you came back and then stayed.
And I stayed.
But any trouble with your visas?
It was everything. I don't want to go in there. It's
Okay.
It's a long story. One thing that I say when it comes to immigration, and I might have a very different outlook on it just because I went through it. But if I had to swim the ocean and climb the mountains, climb the walls, I would have done it.
Really?
Yeah.
For
Because
why?
there's nothing out there. There is no opportunity. There is no life. And here it's everything. Everything. You come in and it's all available. You can have the highest, the most abundance, education, healthcare, life. You can live. There is no life in many places.
Mm-hmm. So it's worth doing whatever you have to do to get here.
Yeah.
And was just why America as opposed to there's other countries that would have been great too, right? Like better than Kazakhstan. But why America? Do you just think that was like the place with the most opportunity?
It is a place with the most opportunity, especially for people who are more entrepreneurial. You go to Europe, you can get a good job and work for the company. It's very, very difficult to open a business in Europe because it's really created for workers. Again, you can have amazing life. It's just a different lifestyle. You will have your, nap times and, early evenings. So it's not this overworked world as it is in States. But it's just a different mindset. But if you want to create something, make something, build something, it's America.
A bit ago when you were talking about all the opportunity in America and why you wanted to come here and you can build whatever you want and you can open a business. And I could see like you were passionate about that. Like it's clearly like this is something you're passionate about. Why are you passionate about that? Is it because you've experienced firsthand what life can be like with limited opportunity or no opportunity or very little opportunity and what life can be like with all of the opportunity? Or what is it that makes you passionate about coming to America and having all this opportunity here?
Yes, because I know what it is not have opportunity, not have the rights. My mother got hit by a car and she was in ICU. And the person who hit her was a cop, right? He was a police officer. Guess what? It was her fault for walking down, on a traffic light, on a green light, and because he was in power. Right? So he is in a position. So if you are a regular person, there was absolutely no hope for you. And She could have died. She almost died, but she didn't. So,
What would you say to people then here in America that think, the good old days are over, there's really not much opportunity left, everything's against me, this is my little lot in life, and I'm never going to, really have any opportunity or be able to, have a full life because just because of the system or whatever, and this is where I'm at, and like, what would you say to that?
go to India and go to Kazakhstan for a good 3 months. It will open your mind, heart, eyes in a very different ways. It is difficult because even I, with all the gratitude and abundance and everything that I've seen, I see myself sometimes being caught up in America, being a little bit ungrateful, thinking that this is how things are. And I take myself back home every summer. Last summer, it was the first time I didn't go because of the COVID, just to remind myself of what it truly is and how abundant and unreal, full of opportunity this place is. If you want it, it is here. The only obstacle are in our mind. If we're able to let it go, whatever this is unfair and this is this and that is that, if we're able to work through it, the world is yours. The world is yours.
It's good for me to hear because, I've said this before on the podcast, but sometimes people have like stories that they tell themselves and when they're not in a healthy place. And one of the stories that I'll sometimes tell myself if I'm not in a healthy place is like everything good either leaves or dies. And so to hear you say, well, and the way that plays out then is sometimes like, well, I could start something or I could do something, but what's the point? It might not turn out well anyway, But then to hear you saying, look, you're in America. The sky's the limit. There's opportunity here. It's good for me to hear that objectively because that to me is an objective data point. Here's someone who has experienced different environment, different policies, different society, and then has experienced this one here in America. And we are mostly the ones that cap ourselves here. There really is opportunity here. I totally agree with you. But growing up here, and this is what I'm so used to, and you might try something and maybe you bump into some stuff and you hit challenges or whatever it is, and some stuff works and some stuff doesn't. And you can get caught up in this first world thinking and then think kind of poor me and what's the point, and there's thinking that there's not so much opportunity. But to hear you say, no, this is what it looks like when there's not opportunity, and it doesn't look like America. There is opportunity here. It's good for me to hear. Even
the poorest person in America, right? Even you are in a system. You have a TV, you have running water, you have food. Like that is beyond. That is a dream for so many people. That is an area of wealth and abundance for so many people.
And if that poor person and their mom worked for 8 months, they'd make more than $600 at pretty much any job here. So at least that's another area that this is better. And you mentioned, you can open an LLC in Tennessee for like $300.
Yeah.
It's not that much.
You can start a business anytime.
At some point then you met your husband who passed away.
Correct, yes.
Reggie? Is that his name?
Yeah.
Okay. How'd you meet Reggie?
I was applying for a job at Mandalay Bay Casino in Las Vegas, and he hired me. He was interviewing me, and then he hired me. So I remember when I started working, I would tell, do not look at him. Just do not look at him, because I was just so attracted. He was so tall and handsome, and just with this charm. And I was such a good girl, and absolutely no kind of romances at work. Just keep it all straight and professional. Didn't work out too well. I really tried though. I did. Yes.
Why did you try? Did you just think, that's actually good self-awareness, but how did you even know that? You just figured this is going to go better if we keep this professional. He hired me, and so let's just.
Absolutely,
okay.
Yes. I didn't. Again, I was just there for a season. I wanted to make my money. Again, I was in America taking a bus for almost 2 years, right, in the heat of Las Vegas. I'm like, this is my opportunity. I'm going to buy a car, do all those things. And Anyway, I actually did buy a car. I wanted to pay it off. And I'm like, let's really, get to work here. And again, he's in a different position and it would be too much distraction. And anyway, I just never thought that I should date anyone at work because it just creates too much drama. Like, why?
It does sometimes. Sometimes, a lot of times it's not a good idea.
Yes, actually worked out really good for us because it was this, no one knew, only we did. And it was really, really, it's just a lot of energy was coming through. It was a lot of fun, because just give each other a look and things like that. So play around.
And you're doing it on the down low, like no one else knew?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Could he have gotten in trouble or not?
Yeah, he would have probably gotten in trouble. Mm-hmm.
So how did you eventually one of you change your jobs or how did you
Yes, because I was
public?
Seasonal there.
Oh,
so
okay.
yes, the season was over actually at the end of the season in September. We traveled to South Carolina. That's where he was originally from. Met his family. Whole as a different experience for me, right? Because again, they were Southern Black. We go to this Baptist church. I don't understand half of it. It's I felt like they're speaking and singing their words.
Yeah.
And here I am again. My accent is way better now, but at that time it was still so thick. So me and his mom are trying to have a conversation, and we struggle so much. It was so funny, but I feel like, when you have an open heart and you wanted to get to know someone, you just would.
Yeah. How were you received with the Black community and the church and all of this?
I think, again, I was received with open arms and with a lot of love. I don't think at that time his mom would think that that's the woman he will end up with.
Oh, really?
Yes, but also neither did my mom.
Oh,
so that this is the man I would end up with.
Sure.
Yeah. So again, she's in Kazakhstan, and it's her own crazy stories. At that time, it was so cute to hear it, and so it was, and in the depths of South Carolina and how it was. Yes, but I never felt any different. I never really felt any kind of anything from the family. I felt very loved, very cherished.
And then how long were you guys married before he passed away?
So we were married for 2 years. So we dated for a year, and then we were married for 2. And yes, had whole life planned. Our son is 1. We just bought tickets to travel to Kazakhstan so he can meet all of my family and have this great experience, go to Russia as well and see some of because I have family there as well. So we planned this trip, bought the tickets, we're coming back, we're going to have a baby, another one. And we celebrated our 2-year anniversary, and he passed away in a week. And
a week after your two-year anniversary?
Yeah, so it was within a month after that. But it felt because we waited a little to celebrate, and then we went on a trip. We got back from the trip, and life fully changed. It did. It ended. I felt like all of my dreams, anything that I knew, was gone. And it was very dark for very long. Seems like forever. It would never end. Yes, it's on the 25th, 2 days ago, was a 10-year anniversary since he passed. So it was a lot of emotions and looking back and just seeing what the life has been and the whole journey of it.
Mm-hmm. You recently wrote, I'm sorry that happened, by the way. That's hard. You recently wrote some things you learned from your husband's passing. Could you share some of those? You don't have to, I think there was 10 things. You don't have to go through all 10. I'm just curious, what were the big things you learned from that experience?
So every year I would share something, and I usually would share the story of strength and perseverance. But this time, I decided to share the raw story of the spirituality and what was going on in spiritual plane at that time. Because that was a moment that changed or opened up or actually really set me up for my path in life. because I had to know why, and I had to know what happens after death. My home became a space of phenomena. And I would see him in my dreams, but also anytime I go upstairs, the light bulbs would burst or the electrical will go up or down. And I remember it was me and two of our friends. We were sitting and having conversation. It was before the funeral. And it was my son's little bottle was milk on a table. And then it moved on one side and moved like this. And I remember Eric looking at it. We're all looking at it. Eric looks at it and says, "Is everyone else seeing it? I just want to make sure I'm not crazy." Right? And so we're all just crying because all of us just watching the bottle moving. But I was so young, I would think, in an all spiritual understanding and form. I wanted to know what this energy is. I wanted to know why is he communicating, how is he communicating, and really what happens after death. That is where the whole hell and heaven made no sense. No sense. I'm like, if it's hell and heaven, like this is not the reality. This is not what's happening right now in my life. Right? There is just so much more. So I started looking in different religions and traditions and places. And I would go to church, but I wasn't getting anything to fill my soul up. And then I would go to Buddhist monastery and meditate with monks. And I started discovering my inner voice and the talk. And I would speak to the monks. And there are a lot of Buddhist concepts that really were speaking to me at that time. That's where I first learned. I heard about reincarnation before. But again, being raised more Christian or Orthodox, or something in that space, that wasn't something that I really ever comprehended or studied or paid attention to. And then it kind of started all coming together slowly and slowly. I remember I made a friend with a rabbi, and so I learned about the way Judaism works and how they think about all those aspects. And yeah, so that's how the path started opening up for me. Mm-hmm. I heard somewhere once that a woman must know. Like the essence of a woman, we're just so curious. Actually, it was a really funny story. I think it's funny, might not be, but it says that Eve, she bit into the apple because she had to know what would happen. Like, this is an essence of a woman, which is like, we gotta know.
Yeah.
And so even though it takes me into the whole other universes and spaces, I just had this desire to learn, to know what really is going on. Mm-hmm. And so yes, while it was very dark and I slept for so many hours a day because I just wanted to escape. I thought that maybe I wake up and I'll recognize it was all a bad dream. And it never happened. And I just dreamed it. So again, because I was a good girl, I couldn't go into drugs or alcohol or anything like that. So I found my own way of escaping. And it was through hours of sleep, right? 12, 14, so my body would just shut down. And it did. A few times I would wake up and I'm like, did I dream that life or did I dream this life? What is the reality? Because I didn't know how to deal with that. Mm-hmm. But again, I had a 1-year-old precious soul. And I knew that I had to find my way back to life for him. Because it would be so unfair for Gabriel to lose mother and father at the same time. Because I'm just not able to cope with the pain and the grief because I'm just lost. And it's slowly starting having that healing process. And again, speaking with the monks and meditating and going into yoga, it started opening other aspects of spirituality that were soothing my heart and my soul.
I want to hear more about that. But first, how long was this after you moved to America? 4 or 5 years?
3 years.
3 years.
4 years. I'm horrible with life.
So 3-4 years, so not a super long time. So here you are, you've made it to America, you've got the whole immigration thing figured out, you landed in Las Vegas to begin with, and that's where you met Reggie. You guys fell in love, got married, and now he passed away. I mean, it really must, because you didn't have family here.
No one.
So this is, it just strikes me as this is, every loss has its own particulars to it, and it's painful in its own way and everything. But you've got this, it just feels you've got this extra weight of being like in this country, and now your husband has died. Like it must have felt, that must have added to the loneliness, it seems to me.
It did. Also, I had no family. Right? I didn't even know how this funeral things works in this country. Right? I know how it works back home. Very different system, period. Systems are very different. Traditions are very different. But I'm very blessed that I have people that showed up, friends that showed up, and they took over some parts.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'm very, very blessed with some incredible, angelic beings on earth who are still very close friends of mine, and they were able to help me and guide me through that process. Yeah,
that's so. I think that's one of the things that you don't think about. Like when someone dies, it's just there's the practical matter of planning the funeral. And I know that my dad died when I was 10, so mom was I don't know. Well, mom was probably like 30. Mom was probably 34 years old, and when your husband dies and you have 4 kids, the last thing you want to be doing is planning the details of a funeral. And so I remember just how helpful it was for her to have friends and family and church members and all that kind of rally around. My dad's brother, really pitch in and help plan all that. So that's even new for you. I mean, this is a different culture entirely.
It is.
Is your English good at this point though? Like you've got an accent, but
I could speak, but I didn't know those words, right? The words that have to do with a particular thing as a funeral, right? Because there is how you're going to have it. What are you choosing? All of it had its own name. I'm like, I don't speak that type of English. I haven't learned it.
Wow. Yeah. That's hard. Okay. The going upstairs and the light bulb breaking and the bottle of milk moving around on the table. This happened after Reggie passed away?
Yes.
Was this ever happening before he died?
No.
No. Okay. So what do you think is with all that? Like what was behind that?
He was communicating to me. He was trying to speak to me. He was trying to say, hey, I'm still here. Was trying to show through as a spirit, you can, especially the electrical vibrations are easier to interact with. Physicals are actually quite hard. So it was a lot of phenomena just to get those things moving. So it was the light bulbs, and it continued. It continued for a month. All kind of different things. So my house is a space of phenomena. I never know what's going to happen, but I also am afraid. I'm scared. I understand deep down within my soul that he's just trying to tell me that he's okay, that he's here, that he's watching over us. But also, this is so spooky, right? I'm afraid. And so I remember I went upstairs. It was a month later, and I turned on the lights, and again, the light bulb just, went out. And I just sat on my knees and started crying and said, babe, I love you so much. I know you're trying to speak to me. I know that you're trying to communicate with me, but I do not understand this yet. And I'm scared. I don't know how this works. I'm really afraid. We will be okay. Gabriel will be fine. I'll take care of him. I will be okay. Watch over us. But you can go now. and it all ended. After that, everything stopped. Nothing else ever moved.
Wow.
So that was one of the lessons that I shared that recently that I was writing about, that spirit world understands our words, our intentions. When we say, and they obey our free will. Human beings' free will is actually one of the highest universal laws that the spirit world must obey. And some people are free-willing themselves into pain, loss, agony, poverty, right? Just by focusing on all that they don't have. And angels kind of looking and thinking, wow, so strange. Why would you wish for that? But they also not allowed to come in and just intervene if you want to experience that type of life, unless you ask. The moment you say, come on in, help me out here. I need guidance. I need help. I always imagine it like being a theater, and you are on stage, choose the next player to come in, and you're orchestrating this beautiful life. But you are not thinking of everyone who is making this play happen, right? Who's bringing the curtains up and down and the lights, who's going to bring the next person into this play to make it more interesting. You have such a big spiritual family that is there, that is willing, that is supporting, that want to help. And when you plug into it, right, you become heavenly and earthy at the same time. And that is the most powerful way of being and living. Because some people just choose to be heavenly. And they just check out, right? And again, I love meditation. I can go for days and just meditate. I love being, in ashrams and places like that. It just be with myself and with God and in being in that oneness. But I also know that I came into this life for a reason, and I must serve, and I must share my light, and I must do those things that are of the earth, because otherwise I would have just stayed here.
Right. Yes. Yes, that's exactly right. Yes, that is what's so unique about the human experience, that combination of here, earth, body, and spirituality. And that, because you're totally right, there is a dignity and a reality and a temporariness in a lot of ways to like being alive and having this body. But that's coupled with this eternality of our soul and our spirit and this spirituality of the human creation. Yeah, I totally agree. How did you know or arrive at the conclusion that the light bulbs and those things, the phenomenon in your house, which if that were to happen to me, I would think I would be a little bit scared too. So it sounds like you also were. But how did you kind of arrive at the conclusion this is Reggie talking to you or not wanting to leave? And how did you know it was not something more sinister, like, well, here's an evil spirit trying to get into the house now that Reggie's gone, or something like that? Because it could have been almost anything, right? But
yeah, so you will know if it is an evil spirit or it is someone that is beloved by the way that your body responds, right? Because again, we are chemical beings. We are energetic beings. There is so much wisdom and truth in our bodies, and when it responds and when it speaks to us. So when something is happening, you might be a little scared, but you have peace within. You have this settling of the knowing, right? Where your mind is like, I don't know about all of this. But inside of you, there is a peace. Your body is at ease. It is your loved one. But also, if you have something going on and you like covered, right? And you like your hair just standing up, like your body reacts to it like something is wrong. Like you got to get out of here. Like you have no space being here. That is a spirit that is not welcomed. It is some evil spirit. Or again, one of my beautiful teachers, she said, there is no such thing as an evil spirit or dark spirit. There is a disturbed spirit. Right? So it is a disturbed spirit that might haven't found its way. And again, being a spiritual healer and being in a place of light, I have helped spirits to transition into light. When I see a disturbed spirit, sometimes they will reach out or search, or they will find that light, even though they're afraid, but they are ready. And so being able to transition them into the light is one of the other gifts that are truly beautiful.
The spirit, not the person. You're saying you take a disturbed spirit and help that spirit be a spirit of light?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes.
And how do you, well, can we talk about how you go about doing that? Or let's even talk about some of your spiritual healing practices. What does that look like? What kind of disciplines are you doing? How does it, what's involved with healing someone spiritually, or even taking a disturbed spirit and turning them into a spirit of light?
Okay. So those are very different
Okay,
things,
we
right?
can break
very
them apart.
different modalities.
Yep, we can break them
Absolutely,
apart.
yes. Again, about the disturbed spirit, actually, I did had one come into my home with me, and I think it was like 4 years ago. And my house became a space of phenomena. But everything within me, all the energy is like, what is happening? Who are you? What are you doing here, right? And I remember at that time I had a very good friend of mine who I was, studying with, and she was a medium. And I sat down, closed my eyes, and she just started guiding me. And I saw that energy just appear, right? That shadow. And I saw that shadow in a park the day before when I was meditating. But I thought it was just a human shadow passed by. Well, it wasn't, right? So it was, again, we will see it with our human ways, the way that they can really represent themselves. And you might have a different language with the spirit world than I do. They might show you, for color red, they might show you a rose, and for me, they will show a heart. Okay? So it is also our dedication and our patience and our desire to learn how do we communicate with each other. But anyway, so I sat down, and here she, right, it was feminine, felt like it, even though, again, in that space, there is no masculine and feminine, but again, it will appear to us in a certain way. Came through, and my medium friend, she showed me how to allow the spirit to go into the light. And again, only if the spirit is ready and spirit wants to, and she did. And then she told me, well, this is one of your gifts. You can transition lost souls into the light. And I told her, can I have a better gift, please? I'm like,
What'd you have in mind?
This is a little spooky, right? I'm like, are you sure? And she was laughing. She's like, sometimes we don't choose our gifts, right? It is given to you. This is what you can do. And I still remember that moment because I was still quite new, learning quite a little bit. And, but yes, it helped me. It helped me to get comfortable with that space and with that essence. After that, I've done it quite a few times, and sometimes in a healing. But healing is very different because, again, we are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. It is very different. So our body, we just think that we are this body, but we're so much more, right? And in our auric field, and some people look at the auric field like an eggshell, kind of like an egg-shaped form around us. That's how it's usually drawn into different pictures. But we have so much energy there. And so with our physical body, we have an etheric body. An etheric body is really a twin of the physical body. That is a life force energy. That's what gives life to the physical body. And you might have heard a soldier who have his leg blew out, but he still can feel his leg for 3 days usually, right? What is that? The physical is gone, etheric is still there. So as a healer, most of the time, that's where I work. I work in that layer, in the etheric layer. And if there is a disease in the physical, it of course exists in etheric. And many times when it is taken out of etheric, it leaves physical as well.
Oh, okay. So there's a physical healing aspect to what you do most times? Sometimes?
Sometimes. It depends on the person.
Okay.
Because after the etheric body, we also have mental body, emotional body, right? And our spiritual body. Actually, there are more, but just to keep it simple. So our thoughts create a lot of emotions, right? Those emotions will push on our etheric body. And then our etheric is kind of like immune system. It tries to push it away, especially negative things, right? It tries to push it away so we don't get sick, so we don't get physically sick. But if you think the same poor thought or hostile thought for a long time that creates a devastating emotion, then sooner or later it is going to come through the etheric and imprint in a physical.
Mm-hmm.
And that is how disease is created. When someone says, all of a sudden, I got a cancer, right? It's been cooking there for the last 10, 20 years. It is very rarely when it is all of a sudden something happens, right? All of a sudden is a car accident, right? So it's physical first, but then that hole creates in etheric as well. So anytime a physical body needs healing, when you implement that healing of the energy body, the healing becomes so much faster. Many people experience those miraculous healings, right? Because they are ready to receive it. They are ready to let go of maybe the thought pattern that they held for the longest time, the emotional pattern that they held for the longest time. And they are ready to let it go and come into the space of divinity and light and remember who they truly are.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and also in a healing space, working through the chakras, right? Because you asked about that word before. Those are the energy wheels. If anyone seen Avatar, they explain a little bit there, and I thought it was really, really cute way to put it together for the children. But it is energy wells. They are, they are not inside our body like some people think. They're still outside. They're in that field of an energy field. And sometimes they can be blocked or overworked, right? When you're thinking you are running, you're all hustling, you're doing so much stuff. So your solar plexus, which is your free will, your sun center, your ability to shine into the world, that willpower, right? Might be spinning so fast just because you are not connecting with that. You are not bringing the balance into it, right? And if it's overworked for too long, it can go down. And you might, it might just shut you down physically for a little bit to say, chill, too much, slow down. Okay. Same thing with our, maybe throat, expression. So many people don't express that way they feel. So many people want to be a good girl, a good boy. I can't get angry, right? Well, where does that anger goes if it doesn't get expressed, right? Inside. What does it form there? Anger is actually a very, very healthy emotion. It just shows you that maybe someone is stepping on your boundaries. Someone is coming into the space that is supposed to be your space. It is such a wise and beautiful emotion. And when you know how to channel it properly and let go of it, right? It can be such a giant force, like of just getting things happen and done, and in a good and a positive way. So all of the emotions that we have, it's not like they're bad emotions or good emotions. They just are. They just show us where we are in our lives and whether we are on our path or maybe a little bit off our path. Because when we don't feel well, it is something that you're doing in your life that is not congruent with your higher self, that is not in line with your light. And it's just telling you that. most people go, well, I can't be feeling like this. Well, I can't be thinking like this. Right? I'm so good. Instead of looking at it a little bit deeper, what is really going on? What are you trying to tell me right now? What is in this fear? What is in this pain? What is in this love? Right? So emotions are extremely powerful, and emotional healing is one of the things that I do the most. Work with people who are depressed or have anxiety, sometimes even suicidal, to recognize and see those emotions, something that have been hidden for so long. Again, very beautiful process, not very fun, when you're going through it, but when you're on the other side, right, you're so free.
Yeah.
So for me, I feel it's always worth it. But again, it comes out with some restructuring of life.
Yeah.
In some forms.
Yeah, that makes sense. You're articulating it extremely well. You're doing a good job at that. And I feel like I'm understanding kind of this approach a lot more. And what is standing out to me is that if someone's listening to this and like, this ethereal or spiritual or emotional tying into your health, that sounds a little woo-woo, because that's what you're saying is not super American, just FYI. You might already know that.
Okay.
But Americans tend to be like more about but they're disconnected. A lot of them, like spiritual is one camp and mental is in another camp and our body is in another category, and these things are disconnected, and they're not disconnected. And for those people who are listening and thinking, well, this connection idea of spirituality and mental and these emotions affecting my body sounds woo-woo. It's not woo-woo. And one of the good examples of this is stress. I mean, I would think any good doctor would be able to tell you scientifically when you're dealing with a lot of stress, that is going to have major health implications. I heard from our doctor that stress is one of the biggest killers out there. Yes. And so that's an example of something you're dealing with mentally or emotionally or spiritual, whatever it may be, having an effect on your body. And that can show up in various ways, but stress is a killer. And so there is this connection in there. I wanted to ask you about the second thing you were talking about there. No, it was the first thing you said the energy that was spinning, but if you don't act on it, what were you talking about there? You weren't talking about anger. Before you were talking about anger. You were talking about this energy
the chakras, right?
Oh, is that what it was?
The chakras, the energy that is spinning. And sometimes it can be blocked and not spin at all, right? Because you're not expressing yourself, for example, or you had a loss and you just shut your heart down fully, right? Like here is now the barrier upon wall, do not come in there, right? So it might be really dense and not working properly as well. So then you feel out of balance within yourself. You feel out of whack. That's what I call it, right? You don't know what's going on, but I'm a little crazy. Today I'm neurotic. Tomorrow I'm psychotic. Today I'm happy, like all kind of things. Mm-hmm. And it's really, you just might be in misalignment. Your chakras can be doing whatever they are doing, and you have no clue what that is.
Yes. Okay. I don't yet fully understand the chakras. Okay. There's 7 of them, you said.
There are actually a lot more.
Oh, okay.
But 7 of most popular, the one that you hear about, the one that they are bigger. And so people usually know about 7 chakras. But there are a lot more energy wheels in our body. But if we look at 7, so the root one is on the base of your spine. So, but it's not inside your body, it's out. And it is, the color of it is red, usually when people would see it as a red color. And it is all about life and being comfortable in the world. Safety. It's how safe you feel. It's about just really like making it in life. Mm-hmm. And then we have our second chakra, and it is all about emotions, relationships, creativity, procreation. And then we have our third one, which is solar plexus, right around your navel. And I call it a sun center. right? So it's your free will. It is your ability to shine in the world. It is yellow. And so it really kind of comes with this image of the sun. And you really have so much willpower and so much free will to make and create so many different things in life. And it is strengths. So, and then we go into our heart. Heart chakra, love. It is a beautiful space because that's where the lower three chakras and the upper three come together, right? So the upper three are more of a heaven, the lower three are of life. And so when you combine them together, you live from the heart.
Ah, that's kind of a beautiful expression. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so when we're able to live through our heart, we bring heaven and earth together in oneness. And then we go into our throat, right? All about expression, color blue, expressing yourself in the world, expressing your energy, expressing your light, expressing all of it. Emotions, stuck emotions, right? Sometimes you have a really, really good screaming session, and it's just like everything is gone. You feel so much better, healthier, more radiant, and things just come out from all the different aspects, sometimes even of within your body. So, and then we have our third eye, right? And it's vision. A lot of people think third eye is only about vision of other realms, of other world, spiritual visions and things like that, which is it, but it also your ability to dream, ability to see in the future, ability to create your own future. Because if you cannot see it or imagine it or dream it, it doesn't exist. But when you dream it, you envision it, then you create it, and then all you do is you allow it to come into your life and be it. Right? And then the 7 months is connection with the spirit world. It is a connection with divine, connection with God. It is really brings us a lot of the life and the life force energy. Every person has that chakra open in some kind of way or form. It can't be fully shut down because you will be gone. Yeah, so, but again, it just depends how much of that divine light that you're bringing into yourself every single day. A tiny bit, or you just filled with that.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thanks for talking us through that. That makes sense. And are chakras a Buddhist thing, or is this from a kind of the Buddha
I think
practice
it's
or
Hindu.
religion?
It's Hindu.
Is it Hindu? Okay.
If I'm not mistaken, don't quote me on it, but
Okay.
I believe it comes from more of a Hindu traditions. You
Okay.
go into any yoga studies, 5,000-year-old, there is some kind of chakras, explanations, and things like that. So it's a way, again, going back, talking about, medicine and drugs and us running there. That is something that worked for, thousands of years. We were able to heal, we're able to be well. And actually, medicine is slowly, or science slowly start catching up. Now, some nerves or some things that yogis knew about and even have in their books, now scientists discover those things.
Really?
Yes, and now, again, it's, maybe a few thousand years later,
Yeah.
but it becomes more of a common sense and a common knowledge, which for me, it is so exciting because, as you said, some of the things that I might share seem to woo for some people. But now nurses are being trained in Reiki healing to be able to perform energy healing on the patients in the hospitals. So it is more becoming open. And very soon, I hope it's going to be very soon, it's going to be a conversation like that is everyday conversation. And everyone's like, oh, yeah, absolutely. This is just how it works.
Yep. Do you currently practice yoga?
I do, yes,
Do you?
I do.
Okay, like multiple times a week, or how
So
often?
every morning I wake up and I do a little bit of yoga,
Okay.
just to really connect with my body. I feel very different when I do yoga, when I have my practice, or if I skip a day.
Okay.
Especially right now, at this season, creating a life. Yoga has been even more powerful for me.
Oh, yeah?
Really, yes, stretching and coming in. The type of yoga that I love all types of yoga. And again, you go into yoga world, it's so big.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so interesting because, just 10 minutes ago, you were talking about stress and how it is number one killer. And in yoga tradition, it is believed that when a person is born, it is not the amount of years that is predetermined, but an amount of breath that is given. And depending on how fast you breathe or how slow you breathe will depend how long you will live your life.
Oh, that's interesting.
So now think, when you are stressed, how do you breathe?
Short, shallow, and fast.
Exactly. And that is how most of the Western world is. Therefore, as a doctor said, right, number one killer is stress. People drop down. And so yoga really means union with self. It is a journey from self, through self, to self. It is not something maybe like martial arts, right? You go and then you get your black belt and you arrived. There is no arriving there. It's just a lifelong practice because there is always a new levels to discover. It is a deep experience, can be very beautiful spiritual experience. And it is very important to breathe while you are doing yoga, any type. But the yoga that I am certified in and teach is called Kundalini Yoga. And again, I knew that yoga practice would be a part of my past at some point, sooner or later. But I wanted to go into spiritual and devotional yoga rather than sexy American kind of type, right? And so I remember hearing so loudly, again, from God, become a Kundalini yoga teacher. And I'm like, I don't even like Kundalini yoga. And those people are weird, right? And it's like, then the training shows up. And it's 3 months ahead. I'm like, well, okay, I'll look into it. I'll research a little bit. Read up on it. I'm like, it's still weird. So long story short, it starts, I think, on a 3rd of January. It's January 2nd. I'm in California, my favorite place, by the ocean, just thinking about the year. I'm registered for this incredible speaking course I'm so excited about. I have all this aspirations for the year. And the spirit is so strong. You need to go through training. I'm like, God, I hear you, but I really don't want to do it. Can I just freewheel on this one, please? And I just felt like something just died inside of me. I just felt like my heart, just the energy just dropped. And I felt really sad. I'm like, Svetlana, you teach other people not to do this. Why are you doing it? I'm like, okay, well, let me reach out to the teacher who is facilitating the training and ask some questions. And of course, my questions were, why are you guys so weird? Why are you wearing turbans? And he's like, you don't have to wear a turban if you don't want to. I'm like, okay, why do you change your name? It's like, you don't have to change your name if you don't have to. And he's actually, he's like, we were booked. Someone just dropped out, so I have one place left. I'm like, of course you do, right? I'm like, of course you do. So anyway, I'm get in a car, family, driving back home. I'm studying my training. And it was the most impactful, most beautiful, most amazing year of my life.
Learning the Kundalini yoga?
Learning the Kundalini yoga. That practice of light and devotion and chanting and mantras and what is behind all of that weirdness, right? And what I learned that we're afraid mostly of the things that we don't know. And the moment you learn why you wear a turban, so that the energy doesn't leave. So it stays inside of you. You're like, okay, I'll wear a turban. It's kind of cool. I don't want energy leaving.
Sure.
Right? And so when you learn all the different things about, like, there is a science behind it. It's not just like weird or woo. Yes, and it was just an aspect of so much light and transformation that happened that year. And I love the practice. I love the teachings. I love my mantras. Again, I teach it. I see how people truly change from inside out. It is believed. I look at yoga and then healing and Kundalini yoga as its own separate element. Because again, it is devotional, it is chanting, it is a lot of breath work. So you learn how to breathe. You use your breath for healing. There are so many different breaths that you can do for activating certain things, nervous system, your mind, slowing down, relaxing, opening up. And so all of those elements are a part of a Kundalini yoga practice.
Okay. And is it correct that Kundalini yoga is one of the more spiritual types of yoga? Is that accurate?
Yes.
Because there are, like you said, there's kind of this American yoga version or whatever it is. It's not, I mean, I've been to, I did 10 days of yoga about 3 weeks ago. And I mean, I'd love to keep going, but I don't think it's really going to work with the schedule and everything. It's just another membership and all of this. But it wasn't any of that. You know what I mean? Like we were in a yoga studio, you had a mat and it was stretching and breathing and it was 104 degrees and it was hard. Very good for you. It would be very good for my body to stretch out like that.
Absolutely.
At least twice a week. So I'd love to do it. I just don't think it's going to work as a consistent practice, but it wasn't like what you're talking about at all. So there's different types of yoga.
Yes.
And the Kundalini yoga is a more spiritual type of yoga. Is that roughly accurate?
Yes, it is correct.
Okay,
So
gotcha.
what you did hatha yoga, or
Yeah.
before it was called Bikram, and then the whole thing went down, and so now it's just a hatha yoga practice. I love it very much. My body feels amazing in it, right? Just like you, it's a great to do something once a week, twice a week. But it is not that devotional, spiritual yoga type.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Okay, so I'm just kind of curious what you believe here. If there's is there a system of religion or tradition that you would fall under? Like, is it more Buddha? Is it Hindi? Is it or is it not really like a category for your beliefs and like what you would believe spiritually about God and all of this?
So what I believe is that our little tiny minds struggle so hard for so long to put a box, a name on something that is so big, so divine, and so magnificent. And we try to do it for so long. And Wayne Dyer said that Tao that can be named is not the Tao. The God that can be named is not the God. And we think that we are so smart and so superior, and we got it all figured out. And it is such a giant ego. That's all that it is. I love religions. I love different traditions. You will often see me, Sunday morning, I'll go wake up and do my meditation with Buddhist monks. Then I go to Sikh temple and, sing some Punjabi and some mantras. Have my Indian meal for for the week, right? Because they feed everyone there. It's amazing.
Nice.
Yes.
I'll bet it's good.
And then, I'll go to church. So I connected. I feel, and I will cry in all of these places and experience God and experience light and experience that love. So I take the love part of the religions or traditions, and I leave all the fear to them because I don't believe that what God is. I don't believe that it is some dude watching down and sending people to hell and heaven or whatever else. My belief is that it is an essence of love, an essence of light, and our job is to let go of all the barriers that we've built against that love and light.
So when you say God, you believe that there is being, a divine being of some sort that is sort of outside of what we see, like outside and above it all?
It is more even this universal, magnificent energy. I don't know, it was like being, monad, however you will call. It's very difficult for me to even create a picture of it because it's just such a knowing, such an experience of it, and such an energy of it. So that I tried for many years, I did, to figure it out. And I remember my teacher, she 70 years old, beautiful soul, been doing spiritual work since 18, channeled some amazing books. Actually channeled this, one of the most powerful healing modality that helps so many people now. And I asked her, I'm like, how does it feel? Like, how does it feel now that you know it all? And she looked at me with a smile and said, child, maybe I scratched 5% of what it is. Maybe.
Yeah, there is a... if this God that we're talking about is real and does possess the power that I think we both believe that he does, then yes. I mean, this is not something that we can wrap our minds around. This is not something we can put in a nice, clean, neat box. What do you make of the Bible? What do you make of it?
I think it's a beautiful book, a lot of great morals. When you read it as a metaphysical book and read through in between the lines, it opens up a lot more than just a story. Again, even that we are created in the image of God. People take it so literally. They take it as like, okay, I have 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes. God looks like me. Like, no.
Yeah.
You know, God creates universes. You are creator of your life. You are limitless creator of your life, and you create it every day. Whether you know it or you don't, whether you want it or you don't. Like, we have this immense power. We're so powerful. And Jesus said, you can do everything that I've done and even more. Right? But it's so easy to, no, please tell me what to do. And God has a plan, and I have no say in it.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's easy opt out of the
Right.
of life.
To outsource your life, sort of. Yeah. And I appreciate you sharing that very much. I feel like I have a better understanding. It is interesting because we probably have differences of belief on like what the Bible is and who God is in some ways, and some of those there's a lot of what you're saying that I totally agree with, and so I think it is. I can see where it does seem to be a very popular opinion where it's kind of like when it comes to some of these things, I think some people or a lot of people are like, it's kind of like tomato, like you have your beliefs and I have mine and they have theirs and they have theirs and it's all good, and I don't know, I think that could be true if we're just going to view the Bible as sort of a decent book or whatever. But if the God of the Bible is true and that is accurate and Jesus was from God, then it can't really be tomato, no matter what. You can all believe and where everything's going to be, we're all believing the same thing. There are differences. But there's so much about like what you're saying about like the body and our physical being and spiritual being and mental and emotional. It's like, I totally agree with it, So it's really interesting to hear you talk through this. One thing I wanted to ask you also was, okay, so this is actually really great because you have this history with your spiritual healing work, and then you bump into Jerremy, who is trading stocks. Like, I think of Jerremy as like a capitalist of capitalists. How do you pair the two? Like, do they seem at odds to you? Or do you feel like the spiritual practice and belief somehow pairs well with like the capitalist society in America? I'm just kind of curious how you've kind of joined these worlds.
Well, again, I believe the universe is abundant. You know, the wealth, the prosperity, love, money, it's all our right. Right? We all can have it if we want it. If we open up, we allow it to come. I actually haven't met anyone more heart-centered than Jerremy. That man serves, he loves, he wants people to be prosperous, he wants them to live their dream lives. And he does it like that is a vehicle that he found that works so well to have all that people ever want, right? All the good stuff, and actually make difference in the world and change and create all the different causes. So it is not, we are very, very aligned. He is a man of such a divine light, and he just shines it in his way while I'm shining it in my way.
Yeah. Well, what I love about that is I feel like it shows that is capitalism at its finest. Capitalism at its worst is when you're getting ahead at the expense of other people, basically. But that's not what Jerremy's doing.
No.
And that's not what a whole lot of people who are capitalists are doing either. You know, I mean, that is, a capitalist society does work better when it is rising tide raises all ships and you're not getting ahead at the expense of other people.
He loves pouring into others, and his biggest excitement is like, oh my goodness, I made just another millionaire and another millionaire. And when he like in his in RLT, all these like people become millionaires and they're all popping in. All this, I still think about this older lady. She went through all of my courses, but she was a part of the RLT community. And so wonderful, so beautiful. But when she came in, she was on her like bottom was I think like $2,000 to her name and going into retirement, trying to figure out what to do. And Jerremy was like, well, good news is you can't do any worse, right?
Yeah.
It's only up from this point on, right? Like this is it. And so she stayed and she learned and she studied. And then, I teach a dreams course, how to have the life of your dreams, how to manifest it, how to bring into your reality all that it requires. And she is a millionaire. Like it was one of her dreams. And again, it's been such a short period of time. It's just so amazing to see that type of transformation in people. Mm-hmm. And of course, it's not only about the money, because her relationship with her loved ones changed and transformed, right? She's traveling and doing the thing that she always wanted. She's living her life finally. She didn't live for almost 30 years. And now she's living her life. She's happier than ever, and she pours into so many people. Like that is a blessing of what he does. Oh, yes. And you said RLT, and just so people know, that's real life trading, right? That's what you're referring to? Yes.
And I think it's reallifetrading.com, I think is the website, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay, people can check that out. And my wife is learning stocks right now. She's taking Jerremy's courses.
I love it.
And she's loving it. Mm-hmm. She's been into it for about 2 weeks now. Okay. And she is really enjoying taking the courses. It feels like she's back in school. Mm-hmm. She was like, what could I do, as kind of a side gig? And she makes this really great sourdough bread. She just learned recently how to make sourdough bread, and it's really, really good. So she's been making some of that for whoever, people at the gym or friends or whatever. And she was like, man, maybe she should start selling this stuff. Well, you start doing the math on, at most, you're going to sell this for like $8 or $10 a loaf. I mean, 10 loaves, that's $80. That's, you can't, so 100 loaves is $800 a week. I mean, can you imagine her making 800 loaves of bread a week? It's still just $800 a week. It's not that much.
Goodness.
So, but shoot, she could take that same amount of time and learn stocks and make a whole lot more, per hour, or leverage her time in way better ways. So she is taking Jerremy's courses. So people are listening to this. First of all, if they haven't listened to Jerremy's episode, they should definitely do that, because we talk more about stocks in there, of course. But she's loving it. So shout out to Jerremy, reallifetrading.com. People can check that out.
I'm so excited. She is so powerful.
Yeah, for sure.
That woman is on fire now.
Yeah. What else? In a bit, I want to ask you if there's a principle or a practice or a pleasure that you've kind of found helpful in your life. And we've kind of already touched on some of it, but I'm just curious if you'd have advice for the listeners as we close. But before that, is there anything else we wanted to get into today? I really appreciate your time. I've really enjoyed this. Anything else you want to talk about here?
I think the only comment that I would, or something that I would like to share is the concept of oneness, because that is what really deep in my heart and in my soul and that I stand for. And when we just touched a little bit on religion, it was, well, it cannot be all this ways. It can be only one way. And that is the aspect of separation and wars. And I'm different than you are. Mm-hmm. And I feel like when we have conversations like that, and the more we learn about other traditions, about other religions, they actually become not as scary or maybe not as woo or weird. Mm-hmm. And we're able to see the love that is taught in them, the light that comes through them. And we become, it's my dream world that I would love to see, right? The space of oneness, where people recognize that, well, we are one and the same. Mm-hmm. And while there are so many different ways to God, that's why it's so amazing that we have so many different religions and traditions and ways. Because, someone's way might not be my way. But as long as they experience this divinity and they know this love and light, that's all that truly matters. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be my path or my way. And given that permission, and it's truly being God, truly being like God, right? The God that is love and acceptance and kindness, rather than judgment and persecution. If you don't think that way, then this is it. And we struggle with that for so long, right? For the longest time, there was so much persecution. And even right now, there's so much war about just, again, putting God in some kind of box. And my box is better than yours. And yours doesn't work as good as mine. So my call out to anyone who is listening, if there is any religion that you're afraid of or any tradition that you're uncomfortable with, just read up on it a little bit. Mm-hmm. Just educate yourself. Just learn a little bit about it. You will find some similarities and you will find some differences, but some things that you might be able to relate to another person a little bit more. Mm-hmm. Have a little gentle heart and more love for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the Bible would say that God is love. Like that is the source of love. And that's the direction that we can all, I think we can all agree on. We can all move towards love, and that's going to have good results. I think as it comes to some of the different religions, I believe the Bible is from God. Mm-hmm. And so you're probably familiar with, some of my more conservative Christian beliefs, but I think the big question is what to do with Jesus, and there's differences of opinion about that. Like, who was he? Why did he come to earth? What was going on with that? And I think that really matters, what people believe about that. But I do agree with you on moving towards people or religions or traditions or whatever that might scare you. And let's be honest, there are some religions out there that don't end in good ways, but it's the same with people that you don't know, that might be from a different background or a different skin color or a different culture. You start to have those conversations and open up that dialogue with people, and you're like, wow, they're not so scary after all. So, and the same applies with things you don't understand or that scare you about different beliefs or religions. So, it's one of the things that I've enjoyed with this podcast is having people that believe different things than I. And in the past, I think in years past, it would have been more like, well, we can't talk about those things because I have to, if what I believe is right and true, then if I talk about any other way or any other beliefs or any other systems or traditions or religions, then what if that deviates me off my path? You know what I mean? But look, where I stand on that is if what I believe to be true is true, then I don't need to be concerned about being bumped off the path so quickly. We can have this dialogue.
Amen.
So Okay, in closing, what would you offer to our listeners as a principle or a practice or a pleasure in your life that's been helpful or that you would recommend to them or anything along those lines? Does anything come to mind?
Yes, follow your heart.
Ah,
Yes, the heart is a space where all things are known and understood, right? Our mind has the knowledge of the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years, however old you are. That's it. And our heart is the ions and lifetimes of memory of the truth of what your soul is and who you truly are. And when you're able to follow your heart, yes, it is scary at times, right? Your mind will be freaking out because really it's made to keep you safe. But your heart knows the unconditional magnificence that you are. It knows that power, that magnitude, that beauty that is within you and within your soul, that you are meant to bring through and unfold into in this lifetime. So if you follow your heart, if you listen to that voice, even though at times it might seem completely crazy and make no sense, you will live the life beyond your wildest dreams. And please remember that unknown never will let you down.
what?
Unknown, things that you don't know,
Okay.
will never let you down.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So when you step into the unknown, because of the voice of your heart, right, the truth of your soul, on the other side of it is all of your dreams, all of the things, all of the experiences, and all of the love that you're looking for right now. And I do have a heart meditation that I created. It is for people who might think, well, I have no idea how to talk to my heart. I have no idea how to hear that voice. You know, I'm so analytical and I've been in my head forever and I know really how to use that space. But Svetlana, what are you talking about? Where is heart, right? So I do have a heart meditation that, again, can access on my website, thelightfreedom.com, or if you go into my Instagram page, you can access it there as well and download it. And it's a 10-minute experience that will allow you to reconnect with your heart, to see and hear and understand that voice again, so that especially major life decisions, right? The ones that change your destiny. Tony Robbins says that in a moment of decision, your destiny is changed. When you're making those decisions that will change your destiny, you listen to your heart and you obey that voice. It will never let you down.
It's a good word. Svetlana, thanks for being on the podcast. And let's make sure it is, can you say your website again?
The Light Freedom.
The Light Freedom. And on thelightfreedom.com, they can get this heart meditation for free.
Yes.
And then what is your Instagram handle?
The same.
Oh, The Light Freedom
Yep.
on Instagram. So
Yes.
people go on Instagram, The Light Freedom, and then there's a link, I know, on your Instagram to your webpage. So any other places people can find you or you'd like to call out?
Those are the two
Instagram and
places,
the website. Okay,
where I am
great.
the most. Yes.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Fantastic. Well, Svetlana, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Truly appreciate it. And good luck with your gender reveal tonight.
Yes,
Hope
thank you
that goes
so
really good.
much.
Hope that's a ton of fun. And tell Jerremy we said hi.
I will. Thank you for having me. I
Yeah.
really
Yeah. Thank you.
enjoyed it. Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.